Hello, good morning. All right. Oh, I got a little mosquito bite there. Welcome to the tropics. So, Q&A 25. I hope it's Q&A 25. How I create scenes and sessions. You've been asking questions over the last 24 hours, and they have been great. And this was a question that was also a topic, that was suggested by Sophia. So thank you so much, Sophia. I'll credit you in the description later on. Welcome, everybody. Thank you for joining me. Good morning from Bali. I'm going to be a bit slow today, probably, because I had quite a big night. I was not planning on it. But you know, at least I've made it. All right, so let's get to the questions. There's a lot of great questions, and here we go. This is the Sophia I was speaking about. So Sophia asked, how do you balance your slave's desires, wants, needs with your own pleasure? Okay, so I would say that it's a consistent dance, and it's probably the most important thing that I go in understanding what kind of works for me. And I think that's something that evolves over time and that you learn about yourself over time. And so you start to inculcate those aspects of things into how you just run things in general. So even though people don't necessarily love humiliation, it's really high on my list of things that really satisfy me. So I don't push it too hard because it's quite confronting for people, but I end up like injecting little like teases almost into things, and I see how they react to see how far I can push it. But yeah, I would say that it's really important to understand what your kind of kinks are, where you're coming from, and how you can kind of inject them in elegantly to keep yourself kind of stimulated and engaged. And how do I balance that with the needs of the slaves? So I always end up trying to get as full an understanding as possible at the beginning and before even our interactions. And so I kind of let that sit with me. Everything is very organic with me. I kind of let their psyche sit in my mind before I meet them, or I let that open up into things. And so I have that set of who they are and where they're coming from and their needs, and I have an awareness of what really gets me going, and I kind of let those things merge. So yeah, I think it's taken a lot of time and practice, and also really watching to see how they react to the things that I'm presenting from my perspective. Also important that to even get to that stage, to see whether even those needs match, I think is also something that I've learned over time. And so I reject a lot of people, whereas I probably wouldn't have I would have maybe tried to cater. And so that's also, I guess, another way to go about it. So I hope that answered that. Thank you, Sophia. It was wonderful to start with your question because you inspired this whole topic. So thank you for that. And and let's go with another question from you. And you asked, do you build in time for aftercare into the session? And so if anybody wants to ask any questions about the particular Q&A topic, please do so using the question box down the bottom, the question button. Thanks, Sophia. So do you build in time for aftercare into the session? Yes, and after also. I'm very aware of timing now, I guess, if I am on a limited schedule. This is really annoying me. Anybody have mosquito cream? But it's very important. I dedicate at least 20 minutes to really think about winding us down, if not longer if I can, and bringing us back into the non-play space and letting us try to integrate that. So I'll ask a lot of questions so how did that feel when I did this thing, in a very different tone of voice, as opposed to when I was playing. My voice changes quite a lot. So I go back to my everyday kind of voice, which is more like this. And so I try to get people to own the experience. and bring them kind of back out of that play space into the, okay, we're probably going to walk out the door now, and we need to reintegrate with everything. And then I also get people to check in with me about 2 days after, once maybe things have settled in, or I'll check in with them also. And that's kind of my process when it's like a one-off kind of session or however. But when it comes to my personal life, it's really very integrated. It becomes more integrated, because if it's not necessarily like one like unit of session and or scene, when you're living with people, when you're playing with people on an ongoing basis in a relationship, it's like you do a lot more check-ins actually. Yeah. So I would say it depends, I guess, where you're coming from. Limited time constraints. Yeah, I definitely build in as much of a chunk as I can. I think 20 minutes is probably a good thing. And then if you have more time, like 40 minutes even, to like chit chat a little bit, and to let them sit on a surface near near your height. Just little things like this to kind of really bring people back, because it is so important. It can be such a jarring shock, for the system, in a good and a bad way. So I would say it's always necessary, please. Yeah. Okay. So here we go. Do you like to use roles that you're familiar with or fantasize about? Yeah, so I would say that with my personal style, I don't actually do like role play. I am very much my own character, and I do a lot of, the only thing that maybe kind of really edges onto that is that I do a lot of imprisonment and interrogation, and so I guess that could be seen as maybe kind of the role play of being a captive in a dungeon scenario, but actually that's just me. So maybe that's just maybe the closest thing. So I can't say that I tend to role play, much at all. And it's not really where I put my headspace. I don't make things up. Everything is very real for me. When I say something, it's usually very present in my mind. It's not just coming up to just feel the scenario, which it is also, feeling the scenario. However, it comes from my heart. So yeah, there's a lot of people who do that, but it's not necessarily my thing. So let's see. Okay. Do you usually ask about people about their interests and limits? Yes. Before people even come anywhere near me, and it's like we're definitely going to agree to play, then yeah. This is something that happens before we even like meet up, but it's also a huge facet of when we are actually in a space together also. We chat about it. I ask very particular questions about the inspiration behind also what people like. So it's like, when did you first realize that, And so it builds a bigger story for me to be able to invest in and to understand and to play with also. So there's not much of a scene or a session, I think. If you don't do that, you could like, if you're in a relationship, you could slowly build up an awareness of what people are into. But I think communicating that is very useful in order to kind of like really dig into the good stuff as soon as possible. Yeah, so I guess it depends how much you want to tease yourself with that. Okay. Let's see. What inspires you to create scenes? So many things. I would say that the person I'm playing with is the biggest inspiration, because I really feed off of how people react. And so whether it's fear, whether it's like desire, whether it's hunger, whether it's like kind of like disappearing off into their own mind, that inspires how the creation of everything unfolds. I don't plan everything out like step by step. I might have elements of things that I do want to bring in, but actually I am very, very organic with how I let things unfold. What inspires, sometimes, of course, like I'll see something that maybe another fellow mistress has created, whether it's a video or however, or whether it's just like certain fashion or certain imagery, and that might trigger something, and that might grow in my mind, and I might start to let it become a part of my playing, or I might like say we're going to be doing this today. Also, if I'm really missing out on something, then I crave it, especially around vocalization. So whether that's a lot of like verbal humiliation and degradation, if I go like without it for a spell, then I like really build up also. So that's also another way to be inspired. Okay, let's see. Okay, this is interesting. Does the sub have any say in the planning? The thing is that even if it is, I do speak a lot with my subs, and so even if they don't explicitly say I want this, this, and this, actually I own their desires, you know, and so it's such a huge part. There is no scene without my counterpart and how they're reacting, and that is fueling like everything. So there's a lot about my desires, sure, but I think within a scene space, I am very reactive to who I'm playing with, and so there's so much that is information that's coming from the sub. In terms of like planning specificities, if I'm meeting up with people for like trips, do they have any say? Like, because usually I'll spend days with people, right? Not just like one-off kind of a scene thing. No, it's like usually I want to meet here, I want to do this, set it up. But yeah, but I'm kind of always making sure to bring in who they are, because if you don't keep people engaged, how does the relationship grow and flourish, you know? Oh, I'm sorry that, yeah, it's raining. Thanks for the comment. I'll speak much louder. It's raining very heavily in Bali at the moment, but I'll speak much louder. Thank you for that note. Let's see. Okay, this is a nice one. Do you plan which kind of energy you want to create, and if so, how? Yes. So when it's very like specific scenes, sometimes it might carry an air of like, if something happened in particular before it and I feel like discipline needs to happen, then I want to create a little bit of fear, a little bit of room for reprogramming, and also a little bit of a space to express my anger in a constructive way. And so, yeah, and I guess that's very much about how I control and create the tone of things. And so how do I manage that? I guess I mentally prepare my own mind that this is kind of the objective of this time. And then I quite clearly just say it. You know, I'm like, this happened. I was not happy about it, therefore this is going to happen. And you know, so I can be clear with my words, I can be clear with my tone, and also how I dress the space is very important. So if I feel like it's going to be like a torture thing in a specific chair, I might darken everything and just put like a spotlight on that particular chair. And if I want it to be like piercing in their eyes, or if I want people to see me in particular and that for it to be threatening, then I might put it so that they can see me as the focus as opposed to like glaring, you know. So there's a lot of things you can do to play with like light, and temperature also is very, very useful. So it depends how uncomfortable I want people to be. I play with the temperature also quite a bit. Light is very important, temperature, furnishings, space is so important in how you can choreograph that, but also simply stating it and like making sure you have it in your mind about what you want to create, and letting that come out through your voice and how close you are to people, and like how you move in a space, and how you use, you know, your tools and everything. Your your mind and your heart are going to inspire how you hold something, you know? So you really have to own that energy walking into something, if that's something that you want to portray and or inculcate in somebody else. So that was a good one. Thank you for that, Miss Ajin. This is nice. Cheese Biscuits asks, when you were new, how did you approach scenes versus now? Any advice for newbies? Yeah, so when I first started, it was in a dungeon environment, and so it was very like, it was very, very structured according to the way that the dungeon wanted things run. So the meeting, like the chat was at this stage, and then you have this much time for this, and then you have like this protocol for that. And so it was a lot more, structured and not to my particularities. So I would say that probably had a lot of influence on how different things are from me right now. If I had started on my own, I don't know how. I'm so happy that I started surrounded by people who have been doing it. And even if you are on your own, I would suggest being able to surround yourself with a community at least, because that is so very useful in in pushing you forward like fast and keeping you accountable also, and teaching you how to feel accountable also. So I think those are very good things for like somebody new to step into the whole world and let that teach you. But in general, new versus now, I had to like abide by somebody else's protocol, so that had a great influence on it. Scene creation. I think what was very different was, I'm very confident now, yeah? I mean, it's been so many years now. Whereas back then I would feel nervous, and so I would have to maybe plan a bit more. I would even like jot down a little bit, like the things that I wanted to, and what the flow might be. Now I don't write down anything anymore. Like I kind of like own it in my mind, and I kind of let it like open up more. But to really kind of get myself like in the space to step away from the nervousness, I planned a lot more in the beginning. Yeah. Now everything's very like instinctive in a feeling. Yeah. And so things like the lighting and this, it's like I do it really, really fast because I've done it so many times, and now I know what works, for me and within other people. And so yeah, I took a lot more time, and it took a lot more planning, I guess, would be the major difference. And yeah, that would be my approach. I mean, the way that I run things is also quite different, but that's what's in the question. There's so many more questions, so I'm going to keep going. So please ask questions using the question button down below, yeah? Oh, okay, so just going off the back of that question, I'm asked, do you have a script that you follow in terms of what you say, or is it mostly improv? I've never had like a script, like in terms of what I say. I have like a rundown a long time ago, and then an idea of what I want to do now. But in terms of the things that come out of my mouth, it's all improvised. And I talk almost the entire time, unless I really feel like it's going to alter the headspace of all of us too much. But in general, I love to talk, but not just to like chit chat, but to talk about the scene. So it's like, what's happening right now? Like I'll say, this is happening right now. How does that feel? But in a sexier way. And so I guess there's some patterns that I definitely have that repeat. And also I guess the cadence is very like similar, but I don't really think about it. It's kind of what my heart is feeling and what I want to kind of like, how I want to really engage with somebody and like feeding off of someone. And so it's getting louder. I'm so sorry about the rain. So yes, I don't have a script for what I say, but I definitely have patterns that I always go back to. But everybody's different, Sometimes people are like, oh, I really like that particular sentence and how that works for people. And I want to use it at some point. But it's kind of really hard to predict, unless it is a particular like role play scenario. It's really hard to predict how people are going to react to what you're going to say because of where they might be at that point in time. It could be the same person but a different headspace. So it's, yeah. Oh, I'm very clear. Thank you, Samiva. I'm trying to speak louder. But you do what you need to do and just practice to see what works for you. But me, in general, everything is pretty much improvised because people provide so much wonderful content in front of me for me to use. So I cannot pass up on that opportunity to use some sort of script. So let's see. This is nice. So, Samiva, your favorite environment for a scene? Everywhere is a great environment for a scene. Like literally my house, the corner of the carpet. But no, I think I'm a traditionalist. I love a good dungeon. I love a good like prison cell, and like a little torture chair. That's still, and like overnight lockups, I would say. Maybe because I haven't had the opportunity to do that on a very ongoing basis. I'm having a cage built in my home at the moment, like a big prison cell. And so maybe after I have that for a while, it won't be like super at the top of the list. But at the moment, it's definitely up there. Like a proper, you're locked up overnight. And I can watch you on my CCTV. Yeah, that's definitely on the top of the list at the moment. But yeah, thank you for that sweet comment, Sunrise. Thank you so much. All right, let's see. This is cute. This one's a really cute question. What's the first thing you do upon meeting? Is there an icebreaker? What's the first thing that I do upon meeting? So normally, I meet people for lunch first before I do anything, with them. I assess compatibility a lot these days, because that's just kind of where my desires are at. When I was only like playing, I like people to feel uncomfortable. So I don't necessarily want to like break the ice too much. I kind of want that little edge, and then maybe like slowly work on disarming people and then kind of shocking them a little bit and then kind of bringing them back up. I like playing with that a lot. So, yeah, I kind of get people on the ground very quickly and like crawling towards me. Yeah, and that was probably very confronting for some people, and actually the negotiation will happen then. But I've been to lunch already. So at lunch, what do I do? Introduce myself, and I am very high protocol also. So the way that I break the ice is that I make sure that they're sitting in the right place. I want them on my right normally. And also I might get them to pass me something. I want them to like maybe stand up and like maybe they can kiss me on one cheek or two, depending on what I feel like that day, or my hand. This is in like in public, yeah. And normally I'd just be kissing my feet, but in private. And and it's, yeah, and then I do a lot of the talking. I don't enjoy it when the sub does all the talking, like ever. I ask the questions, and then I give space for them to speak to me. So I guess maybe that is an icebreaker in itself, because I'm engaging somebody and they don't have to necessarily bring anything to the table except for a response, that is very personal to them. And if they look like they're struggling, I'll note that. I'll tell them. I was like, that's okay. So you take your time. I want you to say something that's going to be like specific and relevant. So take your time, take like 2 minutes, and you can reply in that time, and things like this. So I think it's very important to watch the people that you're with, and to let that kind of influence how you are kind of letting them sit into the space more carefully. If I wanted people to feel comfortable, it would probably be different, but I'm not that kind of person. So yeah, this is about how I run things, right? So that's generally how I break people, break the ice. Yeah. Yeah. Okay. All right. Okay. What are the major limitations that you find in setting a scene? Mm. From Samiva, somebody who is close to me. You are the limitation, Samiva. I am the limitation. Our headspace is the biggest of our limits. Always. So, and that's why I take so much time, I think, to sit with my mind and to try to understand that of the people who I play with, because that is going to make the play more difficult. It may make it interpreted in a way that's negative. It could be that we can't do as much as we normally do. Yeah. And so in a way you can see it like a limitation, I guess, but also in a way it's what creates the scene also. So yeah, I would say that our mind is always our biggest giver of scene and biggest taker away also. Yeah, more than anything else. Because you can play with people like anywhere, really. But yeah, if we're gonna talk specifically scene, space, yeah, for sure. So yeah, please ask the questions using the button below, because there's so many wonderful ones and I have to kind of go through this. Yeah, also, okay, so I'm gonna try to answer this question in a way that's going to be friendly for this platform. The question is, I'm a DD, Daddy Dom, and interested in examples or tips for scenes featuring two submissives. So again, I'm gonna kind of sidestep a lot of things because this needs to be kept, not so explicit. So I'm sorry about that. If you want to message me privately, maybe I'll consider answering it. But in general, I would say when you're playing with two subs, there is a lot more. You have to be much sharper, yeah. Because multiples of anything. The thing is that when I'm with another Dom, there's so much opportunity for us to collaborate and to run something together, and so it's a very different thing to having two subs, yeah? Two subs, everybody's looking to you and they're looking about how you act with others. And that is gonna be a big thing. So it can be so good for you, or it can cause so much trouble. So I like for them to interact more than I interact with just one or just the other. I like to tell people to do things. Of course, this needs to be negotiated, to do things with each other, yeah? Or collaboratively. I like it to be a collaborative experience. So let's all work on this one task at the moment. Or I would like you to work together on this particular thing, and to give it a little bit of separation so that they're not in competition, but it's a collaborative experience. Unless, of course, you want to create that tension, then you can create all the competition you wish, but be ready to to suffer the consequences of humans competing. Yeah, which you might also enjoy. So yeah, I can't give specific tips, but I think to keep that in mind is probably the most important thing when it comes to how you utilize multiple subs within something. Also, I tend to like to make them serve me in public a lot. I'll take multiple subs to events and everybody has to serve me at that time, and I give very specific instructions beforehand, and that they might not have to collaborate. Also, sometimes I might get them to meet up on separately on a specific task, and to give me a report on that, so I can see their perspectives of each other and how they collaborate, and that'll make scenes much deeper later also. So there's a lot of things that you can do out of scene to support how you want your scenes to kind of evolve also. So yeah, I hope that was useful. If it was too basic, then I'm sorry, and please ask me a deeper question privately. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Oh, I like this. I like this question. From Mistress Van Riva, do you sometimes implement a session in such a way that you can grow personally? I like that because a lot of the times it's about, for me, it's about how I grow the people who serve me, but about me growing. I would say that I do that around technical things. So if I feel like I want to become more competent at something technically, then I definitely do that a lot. And so that might be about hiring another mistress who is like super specialized in that and letting her be a part of our scene and her showing me. I do that. Or if it's something that I've already practiced a lot in, and I might preempt it also by saying, today you're going to be practiced on, you know, you're just going to be the model and you're going to be useful. And I don't want to, you have a safe word of course, but I don't want to hear anything. And this is not about like creating this like emotional headspace for you. You're useful for me today. So that's, I guess, for me to grow technically. For me to grow on like a personal like heart level, I think I do a lot of that work mostly on my own, but that's a really good point, and I'm actually going to think about how that could be useful for me. So thank you for that. You can always expand on how we do things, isn't it? All right, so please ask questions using the question button, please. From Domina Ara Lee, do you have a general scene format that you like to follow? How long have I been chatting? Oh wow, I've already been chatting for half an hour. Okay, ooh, my goodness. It's gonna be a long one. Do you have a general scene format that you like to follow? Sort of. Yeah, I mean, very basically, I'll have like an intro part, you know, like let us connect verbally and become clear on desires and set the tone. And then there will be the descent into the madness. And then there will be the pulling of everybody out of this and the reintegration of the madness into who we are. That's my very like basic, and I think a lot of people have this format. But in terms of like the scene itself, I play a lot with like peaks and troughs. I've already kind of mentioned that concept, and so it's very much about like opening people up into something, and then like working with attention, and like doing that again, and doing that again, and doing that like really hard, and then like releasing, and then like ending us out. I would say that's probably my general desire for how I like to toy with people and scenes. But I don't like tell myself, now I want to do this, now I want to do that. It's more, okay, now I'm going to do this. Yeah. So that's kind of how I kind of float with things. Yeah. I hope that was revealing. Okay. Ooh, this is fun. They paused a little bit because of the connection. But the question is, how do you intro and train a new sub who is usually dominant? Okay, so usually dominants would come to me for like play, for training, because they want to implement it into their play themselves. And so it's a bit different in that I might explain something a little bit more, and usually it's quite, this is when people are being obviously honest about why they're approaching me, yeah? And so I'll act how I act, but I might add in a little bit of an explanation, you know? Like I might say, like I might be acting how I act, and then I'll be like, isn't it like that? Don't you see how that feels like that? You know, so that they can kind of realize that, okay, that's why she did that, and this is why it might be useful. So that's kind of usually when dominants come to play with me. However, if they're interested in actually being a sub, I guess a lot of questions before would be quite different. And they would probably be, so how are you normally when you are with your subs? You know, what kind of play do you like? And so maybe I might play, this has never really happened. It's normally they come to me for training, like very specifically. But if they wanted to be more like into their submissive nature, wanted to start exploring that, I might turn the tables actually. I mean, I might be like, all right, so now I realize this is what you do. I might even want to see how they play, and then I might do it to them. Because it's like familiar in a way already, and it's like it kind of like reframe them. I think it would be quite fun to do that. Yeah. Anybody out there? No, there's no way that I can say that full sentence here on this platform. So yeah, I think maybe that's an idea. But in terms of training, I did explain what that's like. So there's a lot of planning processes here. So thanks for that. I feel like I already answered it. This is nice. How to keep creative? Okay. For me, I usually gather my creativity from what is sitting right in front of me, from the person in front of me. And that influences my tone and everything that I say, and what we might do next. So they are my greatest inspiration. But if you are more the type who likes to have very specific, and then this is going to happen, and this is going to happen, and then this is going to happen, I would say every now and then throw in something that seems like challenging in the middle of it. I would say play with other tops. I would say, research new gear in the direction that you like. Just keep yourself inspired. Yeah. And when you have those things, I think quite naturally they start to feed into how you let your play evolve. Yeah. And yeah, so I would say the best way to keep creative is to keep yourself informed. Whether that's other people, whether that's gear, which is very inspiring for me at least. Whether it's spaces, yeah, trends, fashion, and so just feed off of all of it, and it will like naturally come into things. But if you're more of a planner, then be deliberate about it. Like, I'm going to do a research day, and I'm going to try that. I'm going to put that in, like, I'm going to craft this like script and slot it on in there. And if you don't feel confident about doing that, but you still want to try, just tell the sub, today we're gonna try something new for me, and you're gonna be patient. And that's that. Yeah, so I would say that. So let's see, somebody's shouting at me in the comments, so I might block them. Let's see. Oh, so many wonderful questions. All right, I'm gonna try to, my goodness, there's so many. Thank you so much. All right, so questions about how I create scenes. Some of you are asking me some explicit questions, like about like specific acts. I can't answer them here, unfortunately. I'm sorry about that. Maybe I'll go to my members section after and answer them on here. So let's see. Questions about how I create scenes. Ooh. Sorry for the big pause. There's just so many that I'm trying to scroll through it. So many of you are screaming at me in here. Oh no, it's the same person. All right, so we're kind of getting to the bottom of the thing now, so I think I'm going to be able to wrap this up in the next 5-10 minutes. So if you have any more questions about scene creation, please do so using the little bubble down the bottom. Okay, planning process, what inspires you? Okay, a lot of these questions kind of repeat, so that's quite sweet of all of you, thinking about similar things. So sorry for the long pause. All right, so do you also do you plan how the session will end in advance? Oh, how things will end. It's very hard to really predict unless you know somebody well and you've played with them for a while. Uh, yeah, the thing is the way that I play, I improvise, and so I often don't know how it might turn out. I might have a little bit of a like a an intention and how I would like it to be, and so then I might be very deliberate in those particular cases. But there will always be something that could not have been entirely predicted, you know, because people are so complex. So especially when you're actually really watching, there's going to be something that you probably could not have predicted, that presents itself in their final reaction or their final takeaway. And I like that. I really like that. It makes me appreciate the complexity of the people who I play with. So yeah, when I have an intention, sure, I really try to get us to that goal. But in general, it's very difficult, you know, because people are so rich, and I like to let that be a natural part of the process. So yeah, okay. Oh, I like this one. Is there any text material on the subject? There probably, you know, definitely is. I mean, I've read books that are more like lifestyle based rather than like scene specific based. But yeah, you can just read stories that other people share also. One of the first books I read was Different Loving by Dr. Gloria Braham. I think that's how you say her name. And it just goes through a lot of different accounts of people and how they enjoy specific interests. And sometimes they go into how things unfold for them, but I think it's very useful to hear how people think about these specific things, because that is the inspiring, you know, trigger for, so that's what you like about it, or that's what people could like about it, and how do I kind of access that? How do I toy with that? How do I play with that? Yeah, and so I think your greatest source is definitely the person in front of you, and then the stories that other people want to share about their personal experiences and a perspective. Specifics like on how to do things. I think like it's not direct, but for me, I think how I see, like, if we're just talking about books, like how scenes evolve in like book form, sure, or in like a movie, interactions between people, and not necessarily sexual, and not necessarily like anything to do with like our world, yeah, but just to see how people interact and how tension is held, I think is also very useful. You know, how people are using objects in space, what objects they put in between them, like you can pick up so much from how like creative writing, like stories can express things also, and it can kind of fuel your own creative process too. So yeah, so I would say that everything can be useful to your scene creation, which is not narrowing it down. Also, I would say, I guess I'm a very psychological heavy player, you know, and so for me, books like the storytelling in The Different Loving, or books like the new Topping book, you know, are so lovely because they talk about headspace and responsibility and how to be in a relationship. It's essentially like a very compressed form of relationship, right? And so I find those books more useful for me because that's what appeals to me, I guess. But if you're just going creatively, it's really, you can find inspiration from everywhere. All right, so getting to the bottom of the list. Thank you so much for your incredible questions. Ooh. Okay. Let's see. Is there a word in code to stop the session? Yeah, it's called a safe word. Look it up, it's very important. Let's see. This is a nice one. This might be the last question. How much do you agree in advance? Does it spoil the fun for you if there is an agenda? Yeah, so for me, I like the bulk of the responsibility to be in my hands, and well, I mean, the responsibility is pretty much in my hands, but also I like the bulk of the flow to be up to me. That's how I run things. There's definitely people who are more open to instruction on like that comes from the sub. I take requests like of desire, but they have to be communicated in a nice way. It's just the way that I'm programmed. Yeah, so how much do I agree in advance? Somebody might be like, I've really been missing this. If it's possible, to maybe, I'll be like, okay, I'll think about that, and I might like kind of give a nice long pause within the scene in doing other things, and then I might drop it in there, so that it's not like super expected. It could have been like, okay, maybe it's not happening today. Then it's like, oh. So yeah, it doesn't necessarily spoil the fun, but I still like to have my fun with it. if that makes sense. Yeah, so that was a very nice question. Thank you so much. All right, so I'm going to go to the top of the list and to see if there's any more new questions about scene creation. Now, this isn't about scene creation, but it's from a wonderful person who I adore very much. So I'm going to answer it. From Andini. Thank you for asking me a question, Andini. It's not the topic, but I'll answer it because it's you. Only because it's you. What is the biggest misconception about what you do? Okay, I'm going to make it relevant to the topic. What is the biggest misconception about creating scenes or about scenes in general? That it's all about pain. Now, I enjoy creating pain and I enjoy watching pain unfold. However, I am not everybody. And sometimes it has nothing to do with like actual physical pain. Sometimes it's emotional strife. Yeah, and sometimes it's not about that at all. Sometimes it's just about a really loving, delicate exchange. So I think the biggest misconception about domination, kink, BDSM, is that it's hurtful. And yeah, that it's like simplistically painful. I think it can be so much more complex than that. And there's a huge level of responsibility around that. And there's a huge culture of communication that's usually part of how we hold ourselves accountable and the standard we hold ourselves to if you're part of the kink community. And it's about asking for consent. It's about a consensual exchange. And so even if pain is a part of it, it's asked for, and it's a part of an understanding. It's part of a loving exchange. So, in the best case. Yeah. And so I would say that's probably the biggest misconception, that it's simplistic, that it's painful. So thank you so much for everything. It's been almost an hour of me answering these wonderful questions about how I create scenes and sessions, and I hope I've kept it above board. And for more explicit stuff, I'm sorry, it's not going to be found on this channel. Thank you so much for always being so engaged. I'm sorry if I was a bit slower today. I drank far too much yesterday. I had a wonderful evening. To those of you who are watching who were with me last night, thank you so much. And I will see you next month. Thank you. Bye, everybody.